My girlfriend brought her friend to my birthday dinner and called me pathetic in front of everyone. So I called her landlord right there at the table. I am David 32M, and I have been with my girlfriend Rachel 28F for about 18 months. She is a marketing coordinator at some startup downtown, always posting on Instagram about her luxury lifestyle and expensive taste. The girl has champagne dreams on a beer budget, if you know what I mean. I work in property management for Westside Property Solutions. Specifically, I handle tenant relations and compliance for about 40 rental properties across the metro area. It is not glamorous work, but it pays well, and I am good at dealing with people's housing drama. Rachel and I met at a friend's housewarming party back in March of last year. She was funny, gorgeous, and seemed genuinely interested in what I did for work. Most people's eyes glaze over when I mention property management, but she kept asking questions about the business side of things. I should have paid more attention to exactly which questions she was asking. The first few months were incredible. She was affectionate, supportive, and made me feel like I was the most important person in her world. We would spend entire weekends together, binge-watching Netflix and ordering way too much takeout. She even came to my company barbecue last summer and charmed the hell out of my boss. I was completely hooked. But around month 6, things started shifting. Little comments here and there about my car being practical instead of impressive. Suggestions that I should dress more like the guys in her Instagram feed. Complaints that we never went anywhere Instagram-worthy for dates. I chalked it up to her being young and image-conscious, figured she would grow out of it. Last Friday was my 32nd birthday. Rachel had been hyping up this dinner at Marcello's for weeks, kept talking about how she wanted to celebrate her man properly and show me off to some of her friends. Marcello's is this upscale Italian place downtown where entrees start at $40 and the wine list requires a second mortgage. Not exactly my scene, but she seemed excited about it. So I went along. I got there right on time at 7, wearing the new button-down she had bought me for Christmas. The hostess seated me at a table for 4, which seemed weird since Rachel had said it would just be us and maybe one other couple. I ordered a beer and checked my phone. Rachel texted at 7:15, running a few mins late, babe. Derek is coming too. You will love him, Derek. I had heard that name before. Some guy from her networking events who she had mentioned a few times as this amazing entrepreneur with all kinds of business connections. I wasn't thrilled about a business meeting crashing my birthday dinner, but whatever. Rachel was always trying to expand her professional network. 7:30 came and went. Then 7:45. I was starting to get looks from the waitstaff, that mixture of pity and annoyance that comes with being the guy sitting alone at a fancy restaurant on a Friday night. I called Rachel twice. Both went straight to voicemail. Finally, at 8:10, I saw her walking through the front door. She wasn't alone. This guy Derek was with her, and they were holding hands. Let me paint you a picture of Derek, 6'2", perfect hair that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, wearing a watch that I recognized as a Rolex Submariner. The kind of dude who definitely tells people he is an entrepreneur, but you are never quite sure what he actually does for money. They walked over to my table like they were making a grand entrance at some charity gala. Rachel didn't even look at me directly, just slid into the seat across from mine while Derek took the chair next to her. Sorry, babe. Derek and I got caught up talking business, she said, finally glancing in my direction. You know how it is when you are discussing real opportunities. Derek didn't even acknowledge me at first. He was scanning the room like he was evaluating the restaurant's worthiness to contain his presence. Then he flagged down our waiter and ordered a $200 bottle of Barolo without asking anyone else what they wanted to drink. So David, Derek said, turning to me for the first time, Rachel tells me you work in property management. That must be steady work. The way he said steady made it sound like a terminal illness. Rachel giggled and touched his arm. Derek's been telling me about this amazing opportunity he is working on. A luxury property development deal that could change everything. For the next 20 minutes, Derek dominated the conversation with stories about his various ventures. Something about cryptocurrency, something else about importing luxury goods, and a lot of vague references to connections and opportunities. Rachel was hanging on every word, laughing way too loud at his jokes, and asking follow-up questions like she was interviewing him for Forbes. I tried a few times to redirect the conversation, Maybe mention that it was actually my birthday we were supposed to be celebrating. But Derek would just talk over me, or Rachel would change the subject back to his business deals. When Derek excused himself to take what he called an important call from Hong Kong, I finally had a chance to talk to Rachel alone. Raksh, what the hell is this? You said this was my birthday dinner. She sighed and rolled her eyes. David, don't be so possessive. Derek is an important business contact, and when someone like that wants to have dinner, you make time. This could be huge for my career. Your career? You work part-time for a social media startup that pays you in company equity that is probably worthless. See, this is exactly what I am talking about, she said, her voice getting louder. You have no vision, no ambition. You are content to just collect rent payments and file maintenance requests for the rest of your life. I make good money, Rachel. I have benefits. I am saving for retirement. That is called being an adult. She laughed, but not in a good way. God, David, you are being so pathetic right now. Cannot you just be cool for once? This is why I need friends like Derek who actually have ambition and aren't afraid to take risks. The word pathetic hit me like a slap. She said it loud enough that I could see people at nearby tables turning to look at us. The couple next to us had actually stopped their conversation to watch our drama unfold. But here's the thing about working in property management. You develop a pretty thick skin, and you learn to keep your cool when people are trying to get under yours. You also develop a very specific skill set related to documentation and following proper procedures. Something clicked in my brain. I pulled out my phone and opened my work app, the one I use to manage all our properties and tenant information. I scrolled through the database until I found what I was looking for. Rachel Morrison, Unit 412. Riverside Complex. I looked up at Rachel with the calmest smile I could manage. You know what, Rachel? You are absolutely right. Derek seems like exactly the kind of ambitious guy you should be spending time with. I stood up and raised my voice just enough for Derek to hear as he walked back to the table. In fact, Derek, I think you should definitely take Rachel home tonight, to her apartment. Derek sat back down, looking confused but clearly sensing that the energy at the table had shifted. Rachel was staring at me with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. Actually, that reminds me, I continued. I need to make a quick work call. Sorry, but this is important. I opened my phone and dialed the number listed in Rachel's tenant file. Mrs. Peterson picked up on the second ring. Hi, Mrs. Peterson. This is David from Westside Property Management. I hope I am not calling too late, but I am actually sitting here with one of your tenants right now and wanted to confirm some lease details. Rachel's face went completely white. Derek was looking between us, trying to figure out what was happening. Yes, madam. I am here with Miss Rachel Morrison from Unit 412 at the Riverside Complex. I just wanted to double-check that her lease is month to month. Correct? I listened for a moment. Perfect. And rent is due on the 1st of each month, with late fees beginning after the 5th. Another pause. Got it. And just to confirm, the lease agreement does include clauses about excessive noise and unauthorized long-term guests. I could see Rachel starting to panic. Derek was frowning, clearly picking up that this wasn't a normal business call. Excellent. Mrs. Peterson, I will need to schedule a meeting with you Monday morning to discuss some potential lease violations that have come to my attention. Nothing urgent, just standard compliance issues that need to be addressed. I paused and looked directly at Rachel. Yes, madam. I will have all the documentation ready. Have a wonderful evening. I hung up and sat back down. The entire table was silent. Derek was staring at me like I had just performed a magic trick. Rachel looked like she was about to throw up. David, Rachel whispered, what did you just do? I took a slow sip of my beer, enjoying the moment. Oh, just work stuff. You know how it is in property management. Sometimes tenants forget that their actions have consequences, and it is my job to remind them about their lease obligations. Derek finally found his voice. Wait, you are her landlord? Not exactly, I said. I work for the company that manages her building. I handle tenant relations and compliance issues. It is steady work, like you said. Rachel was frantically texting someone, probably trying to figure out if what just happened was even legal. Spoiler alert, it absolutely was. David, please, she said. Can we talk about this privately? I stood up and dropped 2 20s on the table, enough to cover my beer and appetizer. Rachel, you just spent the last hour telling me how pathetic and unambitious I am in front of a complete stranger on my birthday. You brought another man to what was supposed to be our dinner and made it clear that I am not the kind of person you want to be associated with. I looked at Derek, who was suddenly very interested in his wine glass. Derek, she is all yours. Just remember that rent's due Tuesday and late fees start accumulating after the 5th. Oh, and the building has a strict noise policy after 10 p.m. I started walking toward the exit, then turned back one more time. And Rachel, happy birthday to me, I guess. I walked out while Rachel was frantically calling my name. My phone started buzzing immediately with calls and texts, but I just turned the volume off and drove home. Best birthday gift I ever gave myself was watching that smug, entitled, "Look disappear from her face," and seeing Derek realize he had just gotten himself involved in something way more complicated than a simple dinner date. The real fun starts Monday when she finds out exactly what lease violations I have been documenting. Update 1, sorry for the delay, guys. Had to help my buddy Jake move this weekend, and just got a chance to sit down and write this out. Holy shit though. I did not expect this post to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the comments. And DMs, some of you figured out exactly what was going on faster than Rachel did. So the weekend was actually pretty quiet. I turned my phone off Saturday and went fishing with my dad, which was exactly what I needed. Just peace, quiet, and no drama. Dad's been divorced twice, so he had some choice words about women who show their true colors in public, but mostly we just enjoyed being out on the water. Monday morning came and my phone was already ringing at 6 a.m. It was Rachel, and I could immediately tell she had been crying. David, please pick up. I know you are there. We need to talk about what happened Friday night. I am so sorry. I was drinking and Derek was being pushy, and please don't do anything crazy. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call 5 minutes later. David, this is insane. You cannot seriously be planning to evict me because we had a fight. That is abuse of power, and you know it. Then another. I have been calling Derek all weekend, and he will not answer. What did you say to him? What did you tell him about me? By 9 a.m., she had called 17 times. The voicemails went from apologetic to angry to desperate to threatening and back to apologetic again. It was like listening to someone have a complete breakdown in real time. At work, I had a meeting scheduled with Mrs. Peterson, who owns the Riverside complex where Rachel lives. She is this sweet, elderly lady in her 70s who inherited the building from her late husband about 5 years ago. She hired our company to manage the property because, in her words, dealing with tenants gives me anxiety attacks, and I am too old for that nonsense. Mrs. Peterson's office is in this cute little house she converted into her business headquarters. She always has fresh cookies and asks about my family. She treats all her tenants like distant relatives, which makes what I had to tell her that much harder. David, dear, you sounded stressed on the phone Friday night, she said, as I sat down with my file folder. What is this about lease violations in Unit 412? I pulled out my tablet and opened the photo gallery I had been building over the past few months. Well, Mrs. Peterson, this is going to be a bit complicated, but Unit 412 has been having unauthorized overnight guests consistently for weeks. The lease clearly states that guests can stay a maximum of 14 nights per calendar month. See, here is what Rachel never knew. About 6 months ago, Mrs. Peterson asked our company to do spot checks on all the units because she had heard from other property owners that some tenants were basically running illegal Airbnb operations out of their apartments. She was terrified of liability issues and insurance problems. Part of my job became documenting unusual activity, cars that didn't belong to registered tenants, noise complaints, that sort of thing. Standard property management. I have been documenting this silver Tesla in the parking lot almost every night, I told her, showing photos. Derek's car has been there 23 out of the last 30 nights. That constitutes an unauthorized permanent resident. But that is not the main issue. The real problem is noise complaints from other tenants. I showed her formal complaints about loud arguments and disturbing adult activities from Unit 412. Mrs. Peterson looked uncomfortable. Oh my. This is exactly what I was worried about. Mrs. Peterson. I need to be transparent. Rachel Morrison was my girlfriend. We broke up Friday night. The documentation was collected before our breakup, but I wanted you to know about the personal connection. She looked surprised but not shocked. David, you have been managing my properties for 3 years. The fact that you are telling me this instead of hiding it tells me everything about your character. What would you recommend if this was any other tenant with the same violations? I sighed. Given the pattern, and that other residents are being disturbed, I think we need a 30-day notice to quit. Then, that is what we will do. The notice was sent by certified mail Tuesday. Wednesday morning, Rachel was waiting by my car looking like hell. Unwashed hair. Yesterday's clothes. Dark circles under her eyes. David, please. We need to talk. You cannot just kick me out because we broke up. I am not kicking you out because we broke up. I am recommending eviction because you violated your lease agreement multiple times. You humiliating me just made me pay closer attention to documentation I was already collecting. You were spying on me, Rachel? I drive past your building daily for work. Derek's car being there 6 nights a week isn't classified intelligence. She grabbed my arm, hands shaking. I am sorry about Friday. I was drinking, and Derek was pressuring me. This is my home. You can probably keep it if you convince Mrs. Peterson you will follow lease terms. But that is between you and her now, Mrs. Peterson. I have never met her. I pay rent online. Mrs. Peterson owns your building. She is the elderly lady who bakes cookies for maintenance staff. Your hearing is next Tuesday. I got in my car. David, what about us? Rachel, you brought another man to my birthday dinner, called me pathetic in front of everyone, and made it clear I wasn't the kind of person you wanted to be associated with. How exactly did you think we were going to end things? I drove away, leaving her standing there. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek about 5 minutes later. Dude, this is seriously messed up. Rachel is freaking out and blaming me for everything. This has gone way too far. Call me. I deleted it without responding. Derek made his choice when he decided to play along with Rachel's little performance on Friday night. But here is where the story takes a turn. I definitely didn't see coming. Tuesday evening around 9 p.m., I got a call from my buddy Mike, who works security at the Riverside complex. Mike's this former Marine who takes his job very seriously and doesn't call unless something's really wrong. David, you need to know what is happening over here, he said. And I could hear shouting in the background. Your ex-girlfriend just showed up with a bunch of people and they are trying to break into the building. Update 2 Wi-Fi was down all weekend at my place. Just got it fixed this morning. You guys are not going to believe what happened. So Mike's call completely changed the trajectory of this whole situation. The background noise when he called was insane. Shouting, car doors slamming, what sounded like metal on metal. David. She showed up here around 10 p.m. with like 6 people, including that Derek guy, Mike told me. They have got bolt cutters and they are trying to force open the main entrance. She is screaming about illegal eviction and saying you planted evidence or some shit. I already called the cops, but you need to get over here. I threw on clothes and drove over to the Riverside complex as fast as legally possible. When I pulled into the parking lot, the scene was like something out of a reality television show. 2 police cars were already there with their lights flashing, and there was Rachel in handcuffs in the back of one of them. Still yelling. Derek was standing next to his Tesla arguing with an officer. Tools were scattered on the ground near the entrance, including bolt cutters. Rachel was in handcuffs in a police car, still yelling. Mike met me at my car. Dude, she completely lost it. Showed up around 9 p.m. pacing and making calls. Then this whole crew arrives and she starts talking about taking back what is rightfully hers and changing the locks herself. Officer Martinez recognized me from previous tenant situations. David, thank God you are here. This woman claims someone illegally evicted her. Can you explain what is going on? I showed him the eviction notice. She was served a legal 30-day notice yesterday for lease violations. She is not being evicted for 3 weeks, but apparently decided to take matters into her own hands. Attempted breaking and entering, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct. This just became criminal charges. Derek finally noticed me and came over. looking stressed. "This is all your fault, man. Rachel told me you are using your job for revenge because she broke up with you." "Derek, Rachel didn't break up with me. She brought you to my birthday dinner and called me pathetic in front of everyone. Your car's been here 6 nights a week since January. That violates her lease. That is not illegal, no, but it violates her rental agreement. And now she has committed actual crimes trying to fix a legal eviction." Derek went quiet, processing this. Officer Martinez finished statements and told me Rachel would be released tomorrow but banned from the property until court. Derek left without another word, just got in his Tesla and drove off. Thursday morning, Mrs. Peterson called. "David, dear, I heard about last night. Are you all right?" "I am fine, Mrs. Peterson. I got an interesting call from Rachel's mother. She offered to pay 3 months' rent in advance and guarantee Rachel follows all rules if we withdraw the eviction notice." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" I said I would discuss it with my property manager. "What do you think?" Before I could answer, my phone started ringing constantly. "Can I call you back?" I think Rachel gave out my work number. When I checked my voicemails, I had calls from Rachel's supposed sister demanding I call off the eviction, and one from Derek that sounded very different than the night before. But the third voicemail was from someone I definitely wasn't expecting to hear from. It was from Mrs. Peterson's son, Robert, who I would met exactly once when he came to sign some paperwork for his mother. "David, this is Robert Peterson. I need to talk to you immediately about Rachel Morrison, and some things my mother doesn't know about her tenant history. Call me back as soon as you get this. There is something very wrong here." That is when I realized this situation was about to get a lot more complicated than just a simple eviction case. Final update: had to deal with car trouble all week. Finally got everything sorted out. You guys have been asking for an update and holy shit. This story took a turn I never saw coming. So I called Robert Peterson back immediately. He is Mrs. Peterson's son, works in real estate law downtown. "David, thank God you called back," he said. "Has Rachel ever mentioned having a sister named Jennifer, or growing up in Ohio?" "No," she said. "She was an only child from here." "Why?" "Because 3 months ago, a woman named Jennifer Morrison signed a lease at another building my mom owns, paid 6 months in advance, cash. But Jennifer Morrison doesn't exist. That Social Security number belongs to someone who died in Ohio in 2019. My blood went cold. "You think it is Rachel?" "The description matches exactly. I think your ex-girlfriend has been running identity theft scams." It clicked. Rachel's expensive lifestyle, vague job, insistence on cash payments. What if she has been subletting apartments under fake names? That would explain everything. "We need to talk to Derek." Derek met us at a coffee shop that afternoon, looking paranoid and exhausted. "Look, I know you think I am just some asshole who stole your girlfriend," he started. "But Rachel approached me 3 months ago. She said she was single and pitched me this luxury rental business investment." Derek showed us text conversations where Rachel claimed to be a successful entrepreneur. She said she needed a business partner. I gave her $25,000 total. Derek, Rachel, and I were living together until 2 weeks ago. We were together for 18 months. His face went pale. "That is impossible." She showed me lease documents proving she lived alone. The documents were fake. Derek also had photocopies of credit cards and driver's licenses with different names but Rachel's photo. We took everything to the police. Detective Williams reviewed our evidence and said this was way bigger than an eviction dispute. We were looking at federal charges. The next few weeks were a blur of FBI interviews and investigations. Turns out Rachel had been running similar scams in 3 other cities for years. She had stolen over $100,000 from various victims. 6 months later, Rachel pled guilty to 17 federal charges and got 3 years in prison plus restitution. Derek and I became friends through this mess. Mrs. Peterson promoted me to senior property manager in charge of fraud prevention. The weirdest part is thinking back to that birthday dinner. If Rachel hadn't called me pathetic in front of everyone, I probably never would have looked close enough at her tenant file to catch what she was really doing. Derek says he owes me for saving him money. I told him we are even. My birthday revelation saved us both from something much worse than just a bad relationship. It has been 8 months now since that disaster of a birthday dinner. I am doing well at work, bought a house with the promotion money, and I have been dating someone new for the past few months. She is a teacher, pays her own bills, and has never once called me pathetic. Rachel gets out of federal prison in 2.5 years. I honestly hope she has learned something from this experience, but based on what the other victims told me about her behavior pattern, I am not holding my breath. The pathetic puppy comment still makes me laugh sometimes. Turns out the real pathetic one was the person running federal crimes to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford.